Welcome to the City Club of Portland, Oregon's premier citizens forum. We're delighted to have you here today. I'm Don Williams, president of City Club. Today our program will be a panel discussion on the City of Vancouver, USA. Our speakers will be Mayor Royce Pollard of the City of Vancouver, City Manager Patrick McDonnell, and Bart Phillips, president of the Columbia River Economic Development Council. For the benefit of our radio and television audiences, please turn off your cell phones or other electronic devices that either emit tunes, beep, or break into song. First, a few announcements. Transportation is a key issue for metro area citizens. Next Friday, our panel will feature Metro Councilor Rex Burkholder of Metro Councilor Rex Burkholder and Oregon Transportation Commissioner Gail Achterman. They will explore the future of transportation on the federal, state, and regional levels. We'd also like you to consult copies of the City Club Bulletin, which are located at each table, to find out information about other City Club activities. These include the Citizens Read Book Group on Monday, June 25th, which is facilitated by author Kim Stafford. You will also see an invitation to join us at the City Club offices next Friday for our final Friday event in June. This goes from 4:30 to 6. No reservations are required. It's open to the public. It's a fun time to get together. Finally, I'm not surprised that 3 of our 8 citizen salons are now sold out. Those who have attended these in the past have raved about the great opportunity to engage in discussion about civic issues in these dinner salons. Check the brochure to see which of the 8 are still available, and you can make reservations through Kim at the City Club office. City Club membership has shown strong growth. If you're not a member, we encourage you to sign up with one of the applications on the table. And today I'll introduce our 2 new members. One is Travis Stanford, who's a consultant with Red Cell Consulting. And the other is Dorinda Schubert, who works at Trillium Family Services. We're fortunate to have terrific corporate sponsors for this program. Please join me in thanking our sponsors this quarter, which are Stoll Reeves LLP and Zimmer Gunsel Frasca Architects. A key part of the City Club's mission statement is to inform its members and the community in public matters. Some who are not familiar with the City Club's mission might question why the City Club of Portland would feature a panel discussion on the City of Vancouver and Southwest Washington. For some insight on this question, let's review an excerpt from a 1994 City Club research document entitled Report on Regional Intergovernmental Planning. This report addressed bi-state regional cooperation, or more appropriately, the lack of this regional cooperation. It focused on Clark County, Washington, and the Tri-County metropolitan Portland area. Page 1 of the report states, increasingly, the Oregon-Washington political boundary at the Columbia River is an obstacle to resolving regional problems that threaten the area's quality of life. The report explores whether the lack of bi-state coordination and planning is an annoyance to good government advocates, or is it a serious problem threatening the quality of life? One of the 14 conclusions in the report is that the 4-county region, including Clark County, Washington, and Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties, essentially function as one geographic, economic, transportation, and environmental community. One recommendation among many was that the City Club should periodically feature speakers on bi-state governance issues. Among the topics today our panel will discuss is intergovernmental cooperation. America's Vancouver celebrates its 150th anniversary this year. Its population in 2006 was over 165,000. Vancouver has a robust and interesting history, commencing with the establishment of Fort Vancouver as a trading post in 1825 and the city's incorporation in 1857. It was a residence of both Ulysses S. Grant in 1852, before he became president, and singer Willie Nelson in 1956, before he moved to Nashville and became famous. Vancouver has a thriving downtown business district and presents great recreational and cultural opportunities. These include a theater company and a full symphony orchestra. The Port of Vancouver is one of the largest and most active deepwater ports on the Columbia River. It handles over 400 ocean-going vessels annually and is a port of entry for Subaru automobiles, and about 16% of the nation's wheat exports go through its facilities. I'm very pleased to introduce our panel, who will tell us more about why Vancouver and Clark County are important to the regional community. I might add, my research and prior conversations with these gentlemen has also convinced me that they are one of the most active and physically fit panel to address the City Club in several years. And I'll be happy to provide you some evidence of this premise in a minute. Mayor Royce Pollard was born and raised in Burlington, Vermont, and attended and graduated from the University of Alabama. After attending Army Command and General Staff College, he had a 27-year career as a United States military officer in the Army, which included 2 years of service in Vietnam. He retired in 1988, and his last assignment was commander of the Vancouver Barracks. His initial term on the Vancouver City Council started 18 years ago, and he was elected mayor in 1996. He's been elected 4 times. Royce Pollard is known as a dynamic and visionary leader, and if we coax him, he might even tell us why he smashed the Portland mugs in the Vancouver, Washington Starbucks in 2005. Now, from a fitness standpoint, he's an avid walker and cyclist and was featured in an article in Walkabout magazine. Patrick McDonnell has been a Vancouver resident for 19 years and was appointed city manager in September 2000 after previously serving as a deputy city manager and as the Clark County administrator. He has both undergraduate degrees from Minnesota State University. Patrick played basketball both in high school and college, and later this month will compete in a 3-on-3 tournament in Spokane, Washington. Bart Phillips is president of the Columbia River Economic Development Council. His corporation is a public-private partnership with 200 associate members. It's a leading economic development organization in Southwest Washington and assists business in relocating or expanding in Clark County. CREDC is charged with promoting job creation and investment while maintaining the county's great reputation and exceptional environment and high-quality life. In essence, it serves as a one-stop shop for businesses looking to move to Clark County. Bart has over 25 years' experience in economic development in the state of Washington. He received his undergraduate degree at North Carolina State University and attended graduate school at Washington State University. Bart is leaving this afternoon for a fly fishing and backpacking trip on the slopes of Mount St. Helens. Please join me in welcoming our panel.
I'm Royce Pollard, the Mayor of America's Vancouver. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to come and visit with you today. I want to talk to you today about the city that we love, America's Vancouver, and the mechanisms we can use or create that will enable us to create even stronger connections and foster even stronger personal relationships between our two states and our two cities. We have two very diverse communities and two very diverse political systems, but we are one region, a region on the threshold of greatness. Several years ago, a columnist who shall remain nameless wrote in your major daily newspaper that Vancouver was, and I quote, Portland's East Berlin. Former friend of mine. Well, I mean, we're here today to tell you that the Cold War is over, but let the duct tape wars begin. Just a joke. Seriously, even before we were Vancouver, our community was a vibrant center of commerce and social activity for our Native American friends. 10,000 years ago, the Native Americans gathered on the banks of the Columbia River, on both sides. There were no barriers. It was Native American land. It was Mother Earth. With the arrival of the Hudson's Bay Company and the establishment of Fort Vancouver, that tradition continued to grow. In fact, early pioneer woman Narcissa Whitman called Fort Vancouver the New York City of the West. And some of the things I'm saying now, it's not intended to offend you. I'm just the messenger. Remember that. But you all know that the Oregon Trail ended at Fort Vancouver. Okay. No. I'm just trying to tell you how we are bound together in a lot of ways that we may not realize. We continued to be an exciting, growing, and colorful city from our incorporation in 1857 through 2 world wars. By the end of 1944, and with the activity of the Kaiser shipyards, the city had blossomed to nearly 100,000 people. With the arrival of peacetime prosperity in the early 50s, Vancouver remained the 4th largest city in the state of Washington, which is kind of interesting, because we are now the 4th largest city in the state of Washington again. But we were the 4th largest city then with a population of 42,000 people. Then for the next 40 years or so, even as recently as a decade ago, our city lost that vitality. As was typical for most post-war communities, our downtown core deteriorated. It's a nice word for it, became a dump. A situation even experienced by your great city. Many of our major employees, such as Alcoa, Fort Vancouver Plywood, and Lucky Lager Clothes. Some of you remember Lucky Lager Brewery in downtown Vancouver, don't you? Sure. There's a guy back there raising his hand. And residents and businesses spilled into the suburbs. As a city and a community, we turned inward. We became isolated from our state and our neighbors to the north in Seattle and Olympia, and from our friends and neighbors across the river here in Oregon. We lost our connection to our magnificent river, to our history, and to our heritage. The mighty river of the West, the Columbia, became a barrier. We quite frankly had a bit of a chip on our shoulders. We were no longer a large city, either in our vision or in our population. These were not easy years for Vancouver or its residents. During the past 2 decades, and especially the last 10 years, under the leadership of 2 of my predecessors and our current city council, our city manager, and our community, we reached a turning point. We started asking ourselves the hard questions. What defines us as a community? What is the city's part in helping to define that role? Who and what do we want to be when we grow up? In the process of answering those questions, we rediscovered a love for and a passion to not only reestablish Vancouver to its former glory, but to go to the next level. We wanted to fulfill our potential as one of the two greatest cities on the Columbia River. By examples and stories that we will share with you today, you will see that as we tore down our walls and embraced our future and our strengths, we gained our own standing and stature as a full-fledged partner in the Vancouver-Portland metropolitan region, in the state of Washington and beyond. We are, in fact, known and acknowledged in Olympia, in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., and in the Portland metropolitan area, where we are an active and willing participant. We are partners working together for a more prosperous future. People listen and pay attention to us not just because we're once again the fourth largest city in the state of Washington, or as I like to tell your mayors and your governor, we actually are the second largest city in the state of Oregon. But the fact that we're not is a great benefit to us as a region, and I will explain that to you. Because people listen to us because they like the way we do business in our community and in our city organization. One of the dividends for both of our cities is the fact that we are in two different states, but we're neighbors and we're attached at the hip, or the river, you might say. It gives us, the region, 4 United States senators, not 2, 4 United States senators. It gives us 2 to 4, depending on who we're talking to on that day, right, Andy? Congressmen who represent us jointly together. You know, the fourth most senior ranking Democrat in the United States Senate is Senator Patty Murray, and she likes Vancouver. And we, together with our friends in Portland and the Metro and in the city, we walk the halls of Congress together because we share and we understand each other's priorities, and when it's to our benefit, we work very closely together. This is a tremendous strength, and our respective legislative delegations know that. You know, there's another one I can't say enough about, and that's former Oregon Senator Mark Hatfield. He is one of the best friends the city of Vancouver ever had. Years ago, while he was in the Senate and even while he was out, a few years ago, we were working for years to get Secretary of State Madeleine Albright to come to Vancouver and give the General George C. Marshall Lecture, which we have every year in honor of General Marshall. Somebody didn't pay attention. That's okay. Mark Hatfield made a phone call, and Madeleine Albright came to Vancouver for one of the best Marshall Lectures we ever had. He's a great, great man and a good friend of the city of Vancouver. And I'll tell you, we're lucky in our region to have him, as we have been lucky to have other great senators and representatives representing both of our states. How did Vancouver go from being an isolated small town, looking backward, to a revitalized community, embracing the challenges and promises of a dynamic future, and increasingly reaching out to our neighbors across the river and to the north? We had a plan, and we didn't deviate from it despite challenges and detours along the way. We always kept focused on our goals and our vision. We knew what we wanted to become: a new community. Understand that there is no end point or finish line, but that we are always in the process of becoming and reinventing the community we want to be. It took, and it will continue to take, a lot of work, but it can be summarized quite simply. We committed and we invested as a city, with our partners, with our citizens, not by ourselves. Business, education community, our citizens, our state government, our federal government buy into the plan that Vancouver is and is going to continue to become a great city. And in some instances, such as the Columbia River Channel Deepening Project, with you, our neighbors, in our downtown, along with the city invested more than in our downtown area around Esther Shore Park. And if you haven't been to Vancouver in the last 5 to 10 years, you really at least owe yourself Go ahead, venture across the river. Be bold. Go into that unknown territory. And come visit Vancouver on a Saturday or a Sunday. Go to downtown. Visit the only LEED certified Hilton hotel in the world. Visit the largest outdoor farmers market and indoor farmers market in the metro area on Saturdays and Sundays, where 30,000 people will visit the farmers market in downtown Vancouver. Our downtown alone, the city invested more than $27 million in streets, parking, underground utilities, and our jewel, Esther Short Park. You got to remember, Esther Short Park was a dump. Anybody remember Esther Short Park before it transformed into what it is right now? Besides me, certainly people from Vancouver do, someone back there. You would not have gone there. When I became the mayor 12 years ago, friends of my family said to my wife, Margaret, tell Royce, we will never go to downtown Vancouver. It was overrun by transients, and not good transients. You know, there's good transients, there's bad transients. We have a better class of transients in Vancouver than we used to have. Yeah. The state of Washington committed almost $28 million to the effort, primarily in the Hilton Hotel Convention Center. And private developers and lenders invested almost 5 times more than the city and the state combined. In turn, these funds will generate an impressive return on investment of $164 million in state and local taxes by 2025, which will be shared with the state and other taxing districts, such as the Vancouver Public Schools, Regional Library District, Port of Vancouver. I want to say something about the Port of Vancouver. First, let me introduce Arch Miller, who's the chair of the Port of Vancouver. Arch, thank you for being here. Please welcome Mr. Miller. You have a great Port of Portland. And together with our magnificent port, I believe it's an example of how regional governments and how we should get along with each other. Not only do the ports work very closely together, but the city of Vancouver with the Port of Portland works very close together. We worked with them to improve the airline carriers coming into Portland. And we are working right now very closely with the Port of Portland on airport noise and how we can improve that great facility and try and address the issues of noise for our citizens on both sides of the river. You know, almost half of the employees at the airport, and I believe even the port, either live in Vancouver or Clark County. We share. And as I've said to the port, to the airport folks, you know, we support what you're doing, but we don't expect to share in the noise any more than 50%. We're willing to take half, but that's all we expect to take, and we will stand up and scream if you try and put more of the airport noise into Vancouver than you plan on doing. It seems to work. Works for me. If people want to see the Port of Vancouver in action, they recently contracted with our local government TV station, CVTV, to televise all of the Port Commissions live because they wanted to be more visible and accessible to the community and wanted to be transparent in their decision making, an option that the Port of Portland might want to consider as well. To see how our Port Commission works in Vancouver, go to cvtv.org and watch. The city will recoup our investments in Esther Short Park with a modest financial return, but we will also realize almost 1,500 new permanent jobs, new office and retail space, and nearly 700 new downtown residents. For the first time that I can ever remember, while riding my bike in Esther Short Park recently, about 3 in the afternoon, stopping and taking a break, I saw a school bus stop in front of the Vancouver Center, an apartment complex, and the lights flash, and little kids come out of the bus and run into their homes in Esther Short Park. No one ever thought that would ever happen, and it's going on in Vancouver now. There are many reasons why we're proud of what we have accomplished. We are especially proud of our Hilton Hotel, the LEED certification. On the educational front, we have a very exciting new investment that promises to be an opportunity for residents on both sides of the river. The Washington State Legislature has committed dollars and agreed to build a new semiconductor research and development institute at Washington State University, Vancouver, which will be a national research center. This is a tremendous, significant investment for our entire community on both sides of the river. This is one more demonstration of the policy and commitment of our legislature that WSU Vancouver will be a full 4-year university of higher education, not merely a branch campus. In addition, our great community college, Clark College, is recognized nationally for its excellence. The legislature passed and the governor has signed a measure that will bring a $1 billion investment package through tax incentives that will lead to a major expansion by SEH America in Vancouver. I'll talk a bit about that later. We were also successful in keeping Nautilus in our community. Nautilus was ready to leave Vancouver, but we, the city manager and I, made a personal commitment to them to work with them if they agreed to stay in Vancouver. Our efforts were so successful that, in fact, Nautilus decided to locate its world headquarters in Vancouver. They're in the former Textronics facility on 162nd. If you remember that, it was a huge 400,000 square foot monster that nobody wanted. Again, this represents a $1 billion commitment by a quality business with exceptional leadership, the kind of business that anyone would want in their town. If I may digress for a moment, I'd like to say that Nautilus is a great example of the kind of business that we want in our region and we want in our city. They've been very successful in recruiting in Vancouver. They're a good, strong business and provide quality wage jobs, but just as important, they commit to the community and they work to make it better. They donate to a variety of community causes. They have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars in fitness equipment to our new Furstenberg Community Center, and they are the primary sponsor of our Police Activities League, or PAL program. They are a partner in our community in every sense of the word. And these are but a few examples of how we invest and how we're committed to invest in our community for the future. How does this continue to happen? First of all, hard work. But what makes us unique, in my view, is that we accomplish all of this. We do it because of partnerships, collaboration, and personal relationships anchored by trust. We are fortunate that it is a regular part of the way we do business in Vancouver. I think in our community we know that we succeed or fail together. We are more than a city of historic firsts. We are a city of people who connect with each other and foster and promote partnerships to achieve our common vision. The 4 examples of investment I cited above were all ultimately made possible through the relationships and trust established in one-on-one meetings and contacts. It was a concerted effort by the city, by local legislators, educators, and business leaders to make the Semiconductor Institute at WSU a reality. Vancouver. It took face-to-face discussions in Japan by the city manager and myself with the head of Shin-Etsu Chemical Limited that convinced them that they were going to reinvest $1 billion in SEH America because of that relationship and trust. It's the longest business visit we ever made. But we have a policy in Vancouver, the manager and I and his department heads, we go visit a business every month. An old business, a new business. We go to their place. We don't bring them to City Hall. We take the right people with us and we sit down and say, I'm not here asking for anything. And they say, really? That's good. You don't want any money? No, we don't want any money. We're just here to say, hey, we're here to help you. If you have plans for the future, if you have issues, these are the people that you need to know. And here are their business cards, and you don't need to wait. When it comes up, you call them, or you call Pat McDonnell, or you call me. I can't tell you the number of successful leads and improvements in the business atmosphere that we have created through this business visit program. It's very, very successful. Okay. Well, I took care of all that. Well, I want to say something about our city manager. You know, Pat McDonnell, I believe, is the best city manager in the state of Washington and one of the best in America. We're very fortunate to have him. We have a very professional staff in the city of Vancouver. The mayor and 6 council members of the city of Vancouver, we are not professional politicians. We are community volunteers. We are nonpartisan. The manager runs, although I like to tell people I run the city, I don't. The manager runs this city day to day. It is professionally run. The council and I set policy and control the budget. We don't make a lot of money. City council members make about $20,000 a year. I make $25,000 a year. We don't do this for the money. We are dedicated to our community. We love Vancouver. I love Vancouver. I have grandchildren who live in the city of Vancouver. We want to give back to our community, and we want the best that we can provide for the future of Vancouver. For the past 6 years, the city manager has taken the initiative, feedback, and support from business community as well as neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, everything we learned about neighborhoods, we learned from Portland. I remember years ago, and I don't remember how long ago it was, we used to have 6 neighborhood associations in the city of Vancouver. They hated the city. We sent our people to Portland and said, go talk to them about neighborhoods. We learned how you deal with neighborhoods from you. We now have, how many? 60? 60 plus neighborhood associations. Every square inch of the city of Vancouver is covered by a neighborhood association, and we work together. And yes, they are parochial, but they also, most of them have a view of the city, and they buy into that view, and they participate. The neighborhood program that you have, that we now have, is great, and we thank you for that. All city departments develop business plans. Now, these aren't plans that sit on the shelf. Rather, they identify goals and priorities that determine budget decisions and guide the day-to-day activities of our city workforce. All of this is certainly fascinating to government policy wonks, but the real question of the day on a Friday in June is, why should anyone come to Vancouver as an investor, a resident, or a visitor? First and foremost, Vancouver is a fun place to visit. It is a quality city. It has a quality of life available to people. We have great education systems. We have a great waterfront. It is safe and secure. And it is a city with a vision for the future, where our citizens participate and are welcome to participate in the government. It is a place where businesses, when I became the mayor 12 years ago, we were a city of 69,000 people. We now are almost a city of 170,000 people. It's not because of my personality that they come to Vancouver. It is because we offer a quality of life that people are looking for. Secure, feel good, good education system, good jobs in our region, jobs. It's all about jobs, folks. That's where our focus needs to be. Our Columbia River waterfront features restaurants, condos, a wonderful trail system for walkers and bikers. We continue to redevelop our waterfront at the old Boise Cascade site, if you haven't seen that. Soon you can see the future taking shape right before your eyes along the waterfront of Vancouver in conjunction with our partners at the Port of Vancouver. And looking to our heritage, you are all invited to pack up the babies and the entire family and come to our 4th of July celebration at the Historic Reserve on the 4th. I guarantee you that because of a variety of reasons, this will be the largest fireworks demonstration you have ever seen in the city of Vancouver, ever. So come, leave your duct tape at home, come and join us, because you're all welcome in America's Vancouver. Let me kind of summarize here, and I think we need to hear from Pat and Bart. Yeah, well, we don't study things to death in Vancouver. We like to get on with business. Every Monday night we make decisions, but the council and I have the philosophy that we do the research, we look at things, we make decisions, and in a year or so we'll look at the results, and if it ain't right, we can fix it. We can change it. We can make the changes. So we believe in making decisions and making them fairly quickly. Vancouver was a military town. Fort Vancouver was there, the Hudson's Bay Company. You remember Dr. McLaughlin and the fur trappers, and remember when we used to teach American history in our schools? George Catlett Marshall was at Vancouver. Ulysses S. Grant was at Vancouver. Oliver Otis Howard was at Vancouver. And I say, who was Howard? Howard was a Civil War general, the head of the Freedmen's Bureau. Remember that from your history? Selected by President Grant to lead the Freedmen's Bureau to create colleges and universities for emancipated blacks and poor whites in the South. General Oliver Otis Howard, a white Civil War general, was the first head of the Freedmen's Bureau and established Howard University, the premier African-American university in the world. His house is the center of honor at Vancouver Barracks, the oldest neighborhood in the Pacific Northwest, Officers Row. We are in the business of creating the premier historic site in the West in the Vancouver National Historic Reserve designated by Congress. And it's just not the military. It is the Native Americans. It is our British history. It is those guys called Lewis and Clark. Remember them? Come and join us. I'm very proud to be an American. Vancouver celebrates our history. We celebrate America in a lot of ways. Now, we are not blindly following any government, but I have to tell you, I think we live in the greatest country in the world, and no matter what our problems are, you should love America. And if you don't, I have a problem with that. We must love America. That does not mean that you blindly follow our government, but it means that you pay attention and you respect what we are doing and trying to do in America. We're lucky to live in America. Many of us were born here. Many of us weren't. And if you don't feel that way like I do, then maybe I'll leave. We have great things going on in Vancouver. We would welcome you in Vancouver. When you're in Vancouver, drop by and say hello to us. Come to our Wine and Jazz Festival, one of the biggest in the nation now. Thank you very, very much. God bless you all, and God bless America. And Bart will follow me.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to City Club for this opportunity. I actually spend most of my Friday evenings listening to your rebroadcast while I'm out in the garden, and I always leave at 8 o'clock a little bit better informed. I'm going to do a couple of things very quickly, and that's from an economic development standpoint, sort of put Vancouver and Clark County in context of the metropolitan economy. Then I'm going to talk about some of the economic development initiatives we have underway in Vancouver and Clark County that I think will benefit the region, Portland, as well as ourselves. Don did describe we're a little bit unique in the metropolitan area, and actually we're a private corporation. We're also a public-private partnership, which is very powerful. The City of Vancouver and Clark County and every municipal government in Clark County has joined with 200 business people to basically fund and direct my organization, and it has been a very successful over the tenure, 25 years of our history there. Clark County is a part of the Portland metropolitan area, and we're inextricably linked. I consider ourselves, at least from the perspective of my clients, Portland. We just happen to have a different zip code, a different political structure, a different tax structure, which lends to the diversity of this area. But we also share, importantly, a shared infrastructure, and maybe most importantly, a shared talent pool. But we are Portland. It was pointed out to me in 2001 when I received a call from Dollar Tree, wanting to establish a large Northwest distribution center in Portland. And they said, we want to be located in Portland because the Port of Portland is our major port of entry, and I want you to show me land in Vancouver and in Ridgefield. So our clients consider Clark County to be Portland, and that's one of our, and I think that's something I need to remember as an economic developer. But we are we benefit from being in proximity to you. We derive over $2.5 billion in wages each year from the Portland metropolitan area and bring them back home to Clark County. We, in return, grant you $145 million in taxes each year, and income taxes. We are the 8th largest taxpayer in the state of Oregon. We also spend over $600 million in your retail stores here. We in turn create over 20,000 jobs for Oregonians, and you in turn create 60,000 jobs for our residents. We are joined at the hip, and we will be for the foreseeable future. And not only is that, but there's extensive cooperation, as Royce mentioned, between our economic development entities on both sides of the river, with some amazing results. The Port of Portland and Port of Vancouver, their cooperation has already been outlined. I think the Lufthansa and Northwest Airlines recruitment was just an outstanding example of cooperation. I'm told by Gerald Baugh, the City of Vancouver's Economic Development Director, that over 30% of the seats that were pledged to the travel bank actually came from Clark County businesses. And without our joint participation, we wouldn't have been able to provide that type of real economic infrastructure. I'm going to tighten my remarks up a bit so that you can hear from Pat McDonnell, really the two bookends of our leadership over in Vancouver, and talk about what we're going to be doing in the future and what we think will benefit the region, and look for your participation. First, the Economic Development Council is going back into the business of proactive marketing with the support of our Governor Gregoire. In my business organizations, we are basically going to be investing close to $500,000 in proactive marketing here each year for the next 5 years. And we're going to be participating also with the new rollout of Greenlight Greater Portland and your private sector marketing organization. But we're going back into the business of proactive marketing, and not only that, we're going back into the business of targeting foreign direct investment. I believe that we're going to go back to the future in the decade of the 90s when foreign corporate investment in this community basically sort of laid the landscape of what we enjoy here today, and I believe that's what's going to be laid for the next 10 years. And we're going to be investing some money in that, and we welcome your participation in that. We're also going to be working to continue to grow Washington State University. Vancouver, Royce has mentioned that. We are going to be building a world-class research institution at WSU Vancouver, and no longer will we be the only technology sector in the United States that doesn't have a research university as its base. We're going to correct that problem and sort of focus on semiconductors, one of our regional clusters and strengths, and put a research capacity so that we can innovate that next round of businesses that are out there. I want to close real quickly with some items I think that we need to focus on in the future jointly if we're going to continue to maintain a healthy economy here. And most of that's got to do around transportation and recruitment. We need to jointly get back into the business of business recruitment, something that we've all sort of have ignored here over the last at least 7 years that I've been in this community. And then we also need to focus on transportation. The Columbia River crossing replacement of the interstate bridge is critical, and it needs to happen quickly, maybe more quickly than we're working on it today. I had the luxury of going by the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. I actually got to work on that project 7 or 8 years ago, and it reminded me they're going to cut the ribbon next week, but it took them over 8 or 9 years to get there. We can't afford to wait that long. And lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't say also that we need to focus on our rail infrastructure. It's something that we as a community have not focused. It's not very visible. The Port of Vancouver is putting a tremendous amount of focus on trying to reduce some bottlenecks in Vancouver, but we as a community, a regional community, need to focus on making sure that our rail infrastructure is as robust as our road transportation and freight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pat, let him some close, and then we'll answer some questions. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I think every city should have a cheerleader like Royce Pollard. I'm going to summarize because we'd really like to get into some question and answers, but I'd like to maybe give you a little bit of a focus from a city manager perspective of what I call building community, because that's really at the heart of what an administrator does and what a mayor does, what a council, but obviously you don't do that alone. You really need to link your community. Can you imagine a circle, and in the center of that circle, you have children and family. The next circle is community. And outside of that circle, but still connected, is transportation, education, public safety, parks and recreation, and the list goes on. If you're in the city of Vancouver and you work in the administrative structure, a department head, a mayor and council, you are evaluated not on how you do your day-to-day business, but how you connect the outer ring of that circle. Most of my department heads and ourselves spend more time trying to link hospital to education, to the port, to transportation. And it is a different focus. When you evaluate people above and beyond their basic job description, you tend to get a system approach to dealing with problems. So for me, the heart of building a community is how one connects the diverse pieces of your community in an effective action. I went on the website and picked up the City of Portland's strategic plan, and then I went and compared it to the City of Vancouver, and it's almost identical. Diverse community, water, history, its demographics, and even the goals and objectives of each city are very similar. And one of the actual first goal under the Portland was metropolitan planning. And when I looked at that, I'm going, well, why don't I have a metropolitan objective from the City of Vancouver to link in? And we certainly do. The one thing that I am seeing from a city manager is that we have many, many plans. We have plans for everything. And in fact, we overprocess everything. So from a city manager perspective, I think the key in linking communities is finding ways to reduce process and planning. The process and the plan is not the product. The product is building a better community. And the ability to take strategic visions, planning and processing, and focusing it on a specific outcome is what I try to value as a city manager. That I can make a difference, that I can actually take the visions of my council, of my community, and figure out ways of finding linkages, not only within the city organization, but within neighborhoods, within business, within volunteers, and with our whole array of opportunities. Even the religious institutions bring significant value to the discussion. So for me, linking those pieces is absolutely critical. And we want to get to questions here. A couple things that I think would be kind of fun to connect the City of Vancouver and the City of Portland area would be one on sustainability efforts, that we actually feel how we can market both locally, internationally, and nationally on being not just green, but appreciating the value of where we live. Give you a small example. We have a goal of being sustainable. My traffic engineers gave me a report last week saying that they changed the signal timing on a certain corridor within our city. It is going to save $1.2 million in gasoline by effectively reducing the timing and effectively moving people through those corridors. 2 years ago, those engineers would have never equated the value of evaluating the traffic based on a sustainable measurement. So just to give you a sense of that. We've also incorporated that into our business planning and that sort of thing. The other thing that I think would be really fun would be to have youth sports where we could find competitiveness between sports in Portland and sports in Vancouver. Connecting families at a youth and connective level. Baseball, football, soccer, doesn't have to be big, but it can be fun. And I think that is a most positive way to really begin to interchange between folks. I had the opportunity last week to meet the police chief of Portland, and it was a very informal meeting, but we also, in that brief informal meeting, we talked about gangs and how we can resolve gang violence by having and I think it's just the personal relationship that we had, and now we're going to continue working on how to improve that. I think I'll just sit down for now and turn it over for questions.
Thank you. Asking questions is a privilege of City Club membership. We're going to make one exception to that. We have a number of interns here from the Hatfield School of Government, and you will have a chance to ask questions to the extent that time allows. Wendy, our executive director is also a good lawyer, so she asked me to remind you that this is not a vested right. It doesn't allow you to ask questions of future City Club Friday forums, but just today. So please limit your question to 30 seconds or less, or you'll get our dreaded sign. Our first question will come from board host Carla Kelly. Carla, among her responsibilities on the City Club board, is chair of the program committee that's responsible for putting on 44 of these Friday programs each year. Carla is general counsel of the Port of Portland, and based on her professional role, it's appropriate that she ask the first question because the 1994 research report talked about and said other agencies should emulate the cooperation between the Port of Portland and Port of Vancouver. Carla?
Thank you, Don, and thank you all very much for coming to City Club today. You mentioned this briefly, but I want to ask a question about the Columbia River crossing, because that's the link. You say we're joined at the hip. Well, we have problems getting back and forth across that hip. So can you talk a little bit about how you see the Columbia River crossing helping you achieve the vision that you have talked about for Vancouver, and whether Vancouver has concerns about that crossing that you'd like Portlanders to know about?
Well, let me very quickly say that I think the need for a new I-5 crossing is probably the most important decision that we will make for the economic vitality and future of our region. We must provide for the transit of goods and services through our region and to our region. So I am very supportive of a new I-5 bridge crossing, and I'm sure someone is going to ask or wants to know, and yes, I think there ought to be light rail on that bridge also. So, and I'll let Bart go.
Well, I'd echo the mayor's comments. I'd also add that, you know, one of the the one area in which regions are going to compete in the future is around talent and labor force. And to me, not only is freight important across that bridge, but I did note that 20,000 Oregonians find well-paying jobs in Clark County, and 60,000 provided jobs here in Oregon. I believe that will balance out at one time, equally going both ways. And so transporting and getting those folks to work and back is just as important as freight, and I think we need to speed up the process and replace that bridge as soon as practical.
Jim Zarin, City Club member from the Portland side of the river. I have the thought that maybe the city manager form of government isn't so bad after all, but my question is, there's a lot of commonalities on both sides of the river, but as was mentioned, the tax system is very different. You know, you got a sales tax, we don't, we have income tax, you don't. I'd be interested in your thoughts about how, in trying to achieve the vision that you'd like to have in your city, your system works for you in a way that it doesn't work for us, and how does our system work for us in a way that doesn't work for you? And then lastly, how does the difference between the two systems get in the way of development of the region as a whole, or does it?
Whoa, that's like an hour question. Let me try to simplify it if I can. First of all, the diversity of tax structures actually encourages communities to be different, but yet unique, but also connect. So I think we can use both tax structures as a way to attract as a region. However, funding services is one of the most difficult things that cities and communities have to do. Let me leave you one quick short thought, and you'll probably think about this for at least a minute, is that our dependence on property tax, the old property tax system, in my opinion, needs to fundamentally change. That the relationship of money and what you are paying for under a property tax system is disproportionate to the services you are asking for. So for me, I think we all need to fundamentally look at how we publicly fund services, and we need to come up with a different model. And I think that's going to be very much apparent. It isn't whether we not have income tax or we don't have sales tax or that. I think we need a different mix of resources and ways to fund public necessary services that's not just reliant on the property tax or sales tax.
Ray Polani, a City Club member. I think we all realize that the future is coming and will be quite different, particularly in transportation. And I think that in Vancouver, what you desperately need is a greatly improved C-Tran that connects to the light rail in downtown Vancouver. Public transportation really can provide the answer and respect downtown Vancouver. I don't think a new bridge up in the air, huge concrete structure over downtown Vancouver is the answer. What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to support a huge bridge structure over the city of Vancouver, I'll tell you that right now. But I think we need, the I-5 bridge is historic. It's hysteric. It's got to go. Now, what do we replace it with is still debatable and still a question mark, and you know that and I know that. They're still dealing with that. I think that C-Tran is trying very hard to make improvements. The two options are light rail from Vancouver hooking to the Expo Center and eventually, of course, to the airport on the other side. The other alternative is an express bus system, which, you know, I don't know. To me, I'm not sure about that. But those are the two options that are being looked at. And there's a, you know, the two governors have put together this, you want to talk about studying something to death, 40 people, I think, and we continue. I think by the end of the year, we will have at least an idea of what is being proposed. And from there, I think individual communities are going to have to make decisions on whether they want to buy into this or not. I still have a lot of questions about the bridge. What's it going to look like? What is its impact going to be to Vancouver? What is it going to do to our waterfront area? What is it going to do to our historic area? We're very concerned about that. But we also are very mindful of the economic future of our region. Rests on us getting trade and commerce through our region. You want good jobs. We have good jobs now, but what you see on the bridge now is going to get worse and worse and worse if we don't do something significant about it. So I'm trying to keep an open mind on it, and I do have concerns.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm Carol Wallace, a fairly new member of City Club and part of the population boom in this area. Living here, partly drawn here by the livable conditions, with one notable negative, I believe. We've heard various discussions about transportation, but nobody's talking about the embarrassing condition of the Amtrak corridor up and down the coast that links all of our cities. And in light of our enlightened energy policy, which I hope will blossom, we should be thinking very seriously about this instead of building more bridges and more highways and all of those things. What can anybody on the panel enlighten us as to what may be going on in this area?
Well, I guess that's what I was referring to, that actually we have not been paying enough attention to rail as we need to, and I do believe that passenger rail up and down the I-5 corridor is a part of that. One of the major challenges we have to passenger rail is basically the lack of freight capacity. I mean, one of the reasons the Amtrak is so undependable at times has got to do with the fact that it has second priority behind freight. So that if we basically enhance the freight capacity, we'll improve the dependability of the passenger capacity. But it deserves as equal. It's a part of a system that we need to focus on, but it's not a replacement for one or the other, but it's just as important.
I'm sorry we don't have time for any additional questions. Please join me in thanking our panel for a great program. We're adjourned.